again.
Hiroshima, never again.
Hiroshima, never again.
Nagasaki, never again. Nagasaki, never again.
Never again.
Shut down all nukes.
Shut down all nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all nukes.
再稼働反対
再稼働反対
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all nukes.
再稼働反対
再稼働反対
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all nukes.
福島 never again.
Fukushima, never again.
福島 never again.
Fukushima, never again.
福島 never again.
Fukushima, never again.
こんにちは皆さん。
Konnichiwa.
Good afternoon everybody. Thank you for standing together with our no nukes action. Time and tide wait no for men. Time had passed 8 years since March 11th, 2011. And over 2,200 people have died because this nuclear Fukushima went down. 22,000. Yes, it's many people. 22,000 people have died relating to this Fukushima went down. This is a number is much more than the about 1,600 people who have died directly for the earthquake and tsunami in the neighboring country, neighboring prefecture, for example, Miyagi and Iwate. And then this total of the deaths of Fukushima accident are increasing every year, but not those Miyagi or Iwate neighboring countries' deaths. They are more like this, but the Fukushima's death is total is increasing every year. Even after 8 years, it's increasing. Why? Why this death is increasing? Because radiation. Because this is a nuclear disaster. People realize that they cannot go home. They cannot go back to their land. They cannot go back their farm, ranch, even their ancestors' graveyards. They realize so that they lost the hope. They lost hope to live. If it's not the nuclear disaster, they are already home by now. They are living their home, their land, the very similar way they lived for 2011. Because the radiation level is so high, they cannot go back. And of course, they are being exposed to radiation so that their health are declining. Most people, the cause of the deaths of over 2,200 people, like 25% is like a heart disease, and some are like stroke, and of course cancer. And then, so these are not only stress because they had to move many locations, but also the radiation's effect. They affect to their health and brain. You know that blah 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 from the Hiroshima and Nagasaki Hibakusha, those people were blamed because people accused them that they don't do anything. they are just lying on. They didn't work or something like that. But because radiation effect, they are so tired. They didn't feel good. And they affected to brain, depression. Those disappear. They cannot really move around. They cannot work. So it looks like they are healthy, but they are entirely affected by radiation exposure. And then the government, what do they do for them? Government is helping them? I don't think so. Even the government is cutting the compensation. For example, 2 years ago, they cut the compensation for the voluntary evacuee people's housing compensation. And then now they said decontaminated and safe area, pushing people to return there. But remember, Japan is still in the under the declaration of the nuclear emergency. So that because the emergency, they high up 20 times the safety level from 1 millisievert to 20 millisievert. The 1 millisievert is the international recommendation level, which over the 1 millisievert per year is not really good health, right? But then Japan 20 times lifted up so that under the 20 millisievert per year is safe. You can come back. Then government is cutting compensation. Either you go back or you don't go back. Which way? They cut compensation. Government is not doing helping victims human way. That's the reason those victims feel that they were abandoned by government. Because they are sincere, honest Japanese people believe government is for them. Government is helping. And of course they believe it because government said the nuclear power plants are safe. Now they realize that the government is not helping them, even they lied to them. They realize so many things. Victims are still victims. They are even suffering. They are dying. They lost hope. They cannot go back home because of radiation. If no nuclear power plant, it's never happened like this. But Japan is still starting one nuclear power plant. There are 9 reactors online right now. Those power plants are facing now a danger of earthquake, tsunami, volcanic eruption, and a huge typhoon. We really cannot afford to have next Fukushima again, right? But people are forgetting. People are actually more like by the government safe campaigns that government is putting lid on the Fukushima's problems so that the people now cannot see the fact, information. As again, Japan is hid many information when its meltdown happened. Now, right now, is still hiding many things that are making this disaster so light. This is a severe, heavy catastrophe. Japan is facing trouble, but made government making this so light. But really, you should see what's going on in Fukushima Daiichi right now. The meltdown reactors are still too dangerous to close. Even robot cannot go, all robot broke, and we don't know how to do. 2021, government hoping to start to retrieve the melted core, but I'm not sure because they don't know exactly where the hazard condition and how to do. They are hoping that, but those dangerous radiation is seeping now still to the air, soil, and then Pacific Ocean. And then the melting core has to be cooled all the time, so much water has to pour, and then every tons of water, contaminated water, now it's in a tank, no space, tank full of the place. And then decontamination, they said, but radiation doesn't just fade it away. It takes some decades, centuries, 1,000 years to lose the effect, right? So that they are just moving the decontamination, the irradiated material here to there. So Japan had so much problem. And then many people who are excited about the Olympics, they don't know Japan's condition. And then kids are always pushing the front of the government campaign, safety campaign. They were distributed to children that nuclear, radiation is not scary thing. The radiation is already among the nature. Radiation helping the people's life like the X-ray, so you don't have to worry about that, and the government is doing a very good job. So you don't have to worry about, let's eat more Fukushima food and come to the Fukushima. And even the softball and one of the baseball game in Olympic is going to be in Fukushima. We cannot allow. The government is making these things like almost disappear. We cannot. That's why we are sitting here. And I hope many people realize that the Fukushima accident is not over, it's still ongoing. Thank you. The Steve Director next.
Thank you, Chizu. So we're here again, another month, 8 years after the disaster, the man-made disaster in Fukushima, because Fukushima did not have to happen. That the meltdown of the nuclear reactors. One of the reasons that had happened is because they didn't want to spend money to have the plant above the water line. And other nuclear plants flooded in Japan as well. And I remember, as I've said before, we visited one of these plants, and they said that here are the things we've learned about how to protect from nuclear accidents or another Fukushima. We have handlebars on the control room, controls. So you can hold on to the handlebars and everything will be okay. That's one of the things we've learned about protecting ourselves. Well, how does holding on to handlebars in a nuclear reactor control room protect you from another disaster? I mean, this is the mentality of the Japanese government and what they're telling the people. As Chizu said, the government has said they decontaminated Fukushima. Well, that's what they said to, Abe government said to the Olympics, in order to get the Olympics there. They decontaminated. But how can you decontaminate when the melted nuclear rods are still in the plant, in the reactor? How is that decontamination? And they don't know how to get them out. The Abe government lied to the Olympic Committee saying they decontaminated. That's not true. Also, politicians there, Liberal Democrats and others have said they can overcome radiation, that the Japanese people can overcome radiation. Well, that was a lie too. We cannot overcome radiation. Radiation is part of our lives and it affects us. And actually there's an epidemic of cancers as a result of radiation. In fact, in San Luis Obispo and San Onofre, where there's a nuclear plants, there are cancer clusters next to these nuclear plants. The contamination of radiation is dangerous, and the industry, the nuclear industry, PG&E, the utilities, work with the government to cover up the dangers. They don't have proper studies of cancer. And in Japan, they are preventing exposure of the records about contamination. They don't want people to know. And also, many people in Japan are afraid to speak out because if they do get thyroid cancer, they don't want anyone to know because they don't want to be discriminated against. That's what happens in Japan. People are afraid to talk about it when they get cancer. And that is used by the government to say that there's no problem. If people don't talk about it, there's no problem. But we know that there is a continuing problem, even among the children who have to worry about thyroid cancer. And we're going to have letters that we'll read today from children who are in Fukushima and now are speaking out against the government's effort to force them to move back to Fukushima. The government has said that it's okay, we're going to remove your subsidies for housing unless you move back to Fukushima. This is a crime. This is a crime to force the children and the families back to Fukushima. They have a right to housing outside of Fukushima. And that is why we're here today 8 years later, to defend the children and the people of Fukushima. But at the same time, the government of Japan is militarizing. The government wants to remove Article 9 of the Constitution to remilitarize. The government would like to have nuclear weapons again. And the government is building a plant, another plant in Hanoko, in Okinawa, to have U.S. Navy ships. We're against militarization. We're against war. The money that's being spent on the military should be spent for people. It should be spent for seniors, for the children, for social services. That's where the money should be spent in Japan and in the United States. And we know that the Trump government loves Abe. They're friends together. And when Trump goes to Japan, what does he talk about? Buy more military weapons. Buy more military weapons. Do the Japanese people need more military weapons? No. No. The Japanese people don't need more military weapons. We don't need more bombs and rockets. We need demilitarization. We need an end to restarting the nuclear plants. And there will be another major earthquake in Japan because Japan is on the ring of fire. And when that happens, the great fear that we have, the great fear that people in the world have, is that the million tons of water, tritium contaminated water, those tanks will collapse and that water will flood into the Pacific Ocean. That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare that is a danger for us all. Because if that water floods into the Pacific Ocean, it's polluting the whole Pacific Rim, where the fish, the people need that water not to be contaminated. It will contaminate the entire Pacific Ocean. But that is what happens when you have really a government out of control, when you have a system out of control, that they would allow something like that to happen. So we are continuing this fight. We're going to be having activities tonight. There'll be a film showing on the life of Taro Yamamoto. Taro is a Diet member in Congress who was an actor, and he spoke up about nuclear power. As a result of that, he couldn't get work. He was blacklisted. And what happened was he decided that he would run for the Diet, and he got elected. He got over 600,000 votes. So he's an outspoken opponent of nuclear power in Japan. And there's a movie about his life at 6 o'clock, and there's information about that. It's on Valencia Street. And also on the 17th, we're going to have another movie, Becoming War with China, which is about not just China, but the proliferation of nuclear power. The Bikini Islands, the United States tested nuclear weapons, and the people, the native people in the Bikini Islands still suffer from radiation. So the poor people, and I just heard from one of our supporters here that Japan wants to put the polluted material on a small island off of Japan. In other words, put it on a small island where people are poor and then bribe them to take the radioactive material. What kind of government would do that? That criminal government, to bribe poor people to take the radioactive material. This is the kind of government that we have. This is the kind of government that we have here that says that everybody's doing fine and we need more money for military while people are dying in the street. That's the kind of government we have. So we say no nukes now, defend the people. 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 Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have people can speak. We're going to invite people to speak who want to. No? Don't be shy. Okay.
Okay, as you know, So we write the fresh letter every month of 11th letter to the Prime Minister. This is a March 11th, 8th anniversary. So I asked some more people to write, hopefully shorter letter, but anyway, lots of more people wrote. So that we're gonna now read the letter. Some people are presented today here, so those I want to read directly. And we must skip some letters, or some letter have to shorten because the time. We have like more than a dozen letters. Okay, first one. 内閣総理大臣安倍首相殿 to Prime Minister 新蔵安倍。福島の原発事故が解明できていないのに、どの原発も再稼働させてはならない。被爆と病気の因果関係を本気で調査するべきです。佐々木義次、京都市左京区在住。And the next is Bob Gollings. Bob?
Japan at one point in history was the beacon of sanity regarding the nuclear question. Unfortunately, it came as the result of the American bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Since that time, the world has watched its backward descent away from leadership and moral conscience regarding nuclear power. Fukushima was the wake-up call not only for Japan but also for the world. It is now confronted with the question of acknowledging the meltdown with all its repercussions and consequences to the world, facing its responsibility to its inhabitants, and closing the Tokyo Olympics for the safety of the world. It can once again be the light of conscience for a world so lost that it would place profit before human existence. Yes, it is an existential question. May Japan regain its place among nations as a guide toward a livable planet.
Thank you. 49ers! Woo! 49ers! The next is Don.
Thank you for having me here today. Sorry to be here again, but here we are. And I will now read what I wrote to Prime Minister Abe. On this, the 8th anniversary of the great earthquake that devastated Japan and caused the nuclear catastrophe that is still going on these 8 years later with no end in sight, I write again to urge you to shut down your dangerous nuclear program and embrace a strategy of renewable power and conservation to address your energy needs. You may believe you have the odds on your side that another catastrophe of this enormity could never hit again. But does lightning never strike twice in the same place? It does if it's strung there by a lightning rod. Japan is like a lightning rod, likely to spawn many more large earthquakes within the time frame of the radioactive dangers posed. If there is another event rivaling Fukushima, you have no right to call it an accident. I urge you to explore ways to meet your needs without threat of more events that will further cripple your economy. Japan has a wealth of sea breezes and tidal currents that could be used, and her volcanic activity might provide opportunity for geyser turbines. With the prospect of a Green New Deal making investments in renewable power a priority, now is the time to move forward and do the right thing. Please, if you will look, you will find ways to do this. I urge you, hoping it is not already too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. はじめさん、お願いします。Next letter. Written by Carol Sasue, who is in San Luis Obispo. She's a member of the Mothers for Peace for working so hard for the shutdown the Diablo Canyon.
Okay. This is by Carol Kisase from Los Osos. Okay. As a leader of the nation's health and well-being should be your top priority. Japan is unwell. Environmentally, huge areas of Japan remain contaminated with radioactive substances. Under your administration, not only have the oceans continued to be polluted with the radiation from Fukushima, the marine life in Okinawa is now being damaged by the construction of the U.S. military base in Henoko. Part of Japan are permanently destroyed. Your people are unwell. Childhood thyroid rates are still increasing. The displaced people from Fukushima are living substandard lives. They will never get their lives back, but you are cutting off their compensation. TEPCO and Japan owes it to them forever because the situation will last forever. The rest of the world is committing to renewable energy. Here in California, the last operating nuclear power plant will shut down its reactors in 2024 and 2025 to be replaced by renewables. Even in Japan, major corporations are supporting renewable energy. Local governments are shifting toward renewable, and society is moving toward a nuclear-free future. Japan should be one of the leaders of this wave. Instead, you are not even a follower, but trying to take the country back to the dark past. On this 8th anniversary of the start of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, I implore you once again, please make the disaster, its conclusion, the recovery of the area, and the restitution for all those affected your top priority. Do not force evacuees back to contaminated areas. Continue to compensate for the damages. Cancel the Tokyo Olympics. Stop the construction of American military bases in Japan. Get Japan back on track for a more forward-looking energy policy. Carol Sasue, Los Osos, San Luis Obispo County, California.
Thank you, Kazumi-san. Next is the Yoko Clark, a work letter. She lives in Berkeley.
Hi everyone, we're here again. I wrote a little letter. It's a little long, but okay, so I said, Dear Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, we are here today in front of San Francisco Japanese Consulate General to mourn the 8th anniversary of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant disaster. The whole meltdown calamity is far from being resolved. Childhood thyroid cancer cases have exceeded 200. Your government, however, keeps saying that this childhood thyroid epidemic has nothing to do with the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Who in their right mind would believe you? Recently, you have published grade school and high school reading materials to inculcate children into believing that nuclear power plants are safe. This brainwashing of the children is most horrendous. After secrecy law, conspiracy law, and then trying to alter the principle of Japan's peace constitution. You think you have an omnipotent free hand to manipulate the brains of grade school and high school kids? This attempt is another atrocious act, following all the other heinous deeds. Mothers and children stricken with thyroid cancers cannot discuss freely about its likely cause with the doctors because doctors are in fear of treading outside of what secrecy law will deem violation of the law. I mourn for former residents forced back to sue contaminated areas with 20 million servers per year exposure. When only 1 million servers, which the international acceptance number. As a Japanese living overseas, I'm saddened and in disbelief about how you handled Fukushima disaster. I'd like to call on your conscience and implore for you to have a courage expected of a Prime Minister of Japan. It's not too late. You can change energy towards Japan from restarting nuclear power plant forever to a future of renewable, sustainable, and clean energy. Yokoku Happy birthday.
ありがとうございました。では、まさこさん。
私は現在関係を得るだけでカリフォルニア州に住んでいます。遠い日本、いえ、この福島3.11のことを思うと、被害を受けた人のことを思うと、悲しい、その他いろいろなことがされてきて、かえって現実的、近距離に感じてしまいます。まだ大勢の人が症状を訴え、不自由な住宅に住み、先の目処は皆目立っていないというではありませんか。支援も打ち切りなんですが、どうか美しい国、道徳の国、ジャパンの名前に反しないように、良い政策を立てていただくよう願っています。Thank you. And I was told by Chizu-san what I do besides this, which is I work for I'm an animal rights activist. I go to like a factory farming and also fur industry. We are working on banning the sale for fur sale right now. And tomorrow, myself and my other comrades going to Sacramento to pass this bill, Assembly Bill 44, AB 44. To pass, this is a statewide banning fur sale. You know, fur industry very cruel, horrendous. Those animals just bred for produce. Fur coat, the fashion. It's not really fashion. It's very brutal, violent industry. So this grassroots activists like you, this is the only way we can get through. And fur industry, also meat industry. I'm not saying meat is all bad. We can get the discussion is another time. But this is because industry and government is like this. Like, oh yes, 2 minutes. Okay, so what I'm saying, please stick on what you're doing. Assembly 44, please call your local lawmaker, state senator, and assembly member. Thank you. AB 44.
Thank you, Masako-san. Okay, next letter will come by the Tsukuru-san. She's in Los Angeles, couldn't come out, so that we will read.
Hi, this is a letter from a resident in Los Angeles. She cannot be here, so I will read her letter. Her name is Sukuru Force Lorenzen. Thank you. This is addressed to Prime Minister of Japan. If you have any respect left for the nation of Japan, the people of Japan, the office of Prime Minister, and yourself, I urge you to resign immediately. You have failed to do your job, which is to protect the best interests of ordinary citizens of Japan. You have betrayed their trust repeatedly. You continue to put their lives at risk. Your government has created a pattern where the poor is made poorer, the powerless is forced to remain silent, while the rich is made richer, and those in power get free rein to do whatever they please. Open your eyes and see the sorrow of families and communities broken in Fukushima. Hear the cries of elderlies who have worked so hard to create a comfortable life for themselves and lost it all because of the man-made nuclear disaster of the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. Your legacy is nuclear refugees who have been abandoned by their own country. It is farmers who have lost their livelihood, children who cannot say where they are from, mothers who cry about the future, and so many who have taken their own lives out of despair. Shame on you! It is about time that the nation of Japan chooses a leader who can act steadfastly to shut down all nuclear power plants and lead the nation of Japan into a nuclear-free future. As the nation bombed twice by nuclear weapons, we have the responsibility to actively pursue and advocate nuclear disarmament. And that's by Sukuru Force Lordson from Los Angeles, California.
Thank you, Lee. And the next is the Sarasa-san. This is Oakland.
Just to hold the microphone close to you.
Like this? I don't have any expectation for better Japan as long as you are running the office, Shinzo Abe. I totally lost hope that you will do the decent job for this country. You don't care about people of Fukushima who still need support and help. You don't understand majority of Okinawa people who wish not to have American military base. Also, you are ignorant about the danger of nuclear power plant. You don't know many things, and you are pretending to be the best friend of Donald Trump. After all, you are the worst Prime Minister of Japan I know of. Sincerely, Sarasa Weinstein.
The next is a letter from Carol Werner. So, Adrian, please read.
I'm reading this on behalf of Carol Woolman. I live in Oakland, California. Ocean currents and winds from Fukushima Daiichi come directly to our coast. Prior to the tsunami and earthquake of March 11, 2011, the radiation readings on my radix counter were 0.5 micrograms or 0.6 micrograms. Since then, they have been more like 0.11 to 0.13. If irradiated water is released from the storage tanks on the site, I am sure the reading will jump up higher. I implore you not to allow this water to be released into the ocean. Also, you are bringing more and more reactors online. Japan is crisscrossed with earthquake faults and in the path of super typhoons, which are getting worse as global warming proceeds. You are putting your own population and the rest of us at risk by continuing to activate these old reactors. One more thing, you are holding the 2020 Summer Olympics with Fukushima, some events right in the province. You say the radiation levels are safe, but you have raised the safety levels 20-fold. Also, there are many hot spots. Are these clearly marked? The metabolism and breathing rate of athletes is several times that of people at rest. So the exposure of these young heroes will be high. Is this fair to them and their families? I ask you to move all events away from the area that has a reading above 0.5 micrograms. And again, put danger signs on all radioactive locations, no matter how small. Leaking bags holding radioactive soil. Sincerely, Dr. Carol Woman.
Of course, we cannot read all the letters today. I got the from, except what we read now, from the Bo Svensson, Santa Rosa, California. Also, John Goddard, Nuclear Energy Information Service, Chicago.根本和美さん、オークランド、カリフォルニア。Jason Kamari, Juneau, Alaska. Thank you so much, everybody. So we already mailed this letter. So the letter is again, that's all. We have more few people to speak out. The next is
Roger Scott.
We made it already through the consulate to the government, to Abe Prime Minister. So speak out. Please tell your name first.
Yes, my name is Roger Scott. I'm with AFT 2121 and the Census Full Labor Council. Like many of you, I received an email invitation to the demonstration like this that's taking place in Japan. And I wrote a letter to Brother Yamamoto and the courageous colleagues in the labor movement, the anti-nuclear movement, and the social movement for social and economic justice in Japan. Dear Brother Yamamoto and comrades in the international struggle for peace, social and economic justice, I won't be able to attend the great rally and protest against privatization and outsourcing of public education, revision of the war-renouncing Constitution, and the misguided plan to send students into battle again. But I'm certainly with you in spirit, as will be millions of people across the globe, like the people here today, who are fighting for peace, social and economic justice, international solidarity, and environmental responsibility and sanity. My life experience with intelligent and humane activists in many countries, including my own, has led me to conclude that privatization almost always serves the rich and not the working people of the world. And evidence of that failing is prevalent in so many countries, especially in education and healthcare. In my view, democracy and justice have no greater ally than universal public education, and privatizing public schools undermines the power of education to inform and liberate the mind. Constitutions of all countries should renounce war and institutionalize just diplomatic solutions to international conflicts. Constitutions should also ensure that military forces not be instruments of racist, genocidal, or ideologically biased foreign policy. History has recorded too many examples of greedy, ambitious, power-crazed old men sending the young to die in unjustified wars. And in recent years, unfortunately, my country's undeclared interventionist wars have brought great misery and instability, especially to the people of the Middle East. It's an honor to stand with you in this important and just struggle. In solidarity and with love and respect, Roger Scott. Thank you.
name you can see at the 245 Valencia Street at the Millennium School. Taro Yamamoto, who is a congressman who was elected by most is anti-nuclear power plant people. And then he is only our hope because he represents our voice. He is really standing and then fighting within government. So this is a very interesting documentary. So I hope you can go there. Its admission is $10, and then everybody gets rice bowls. With the $10 included. 245 Valencia, 6:30 I think door open, then 7 o'clock movie start. And then Steve, you want to announce about 17th event? You need a paper.
So one of the issues that our committee, No Nukes Action, has taken a stand on is against militarization of Asia, militarization all around the world. And one of the reasons that Abe and the Japanese government, like the U.S. government, want to keep nuclear plants is they get plutonium from the nuclear reactors, which are made into nuclear bombs. So the issue of militarization of Asia is a very dangerous development because what's called the Asian pivot that the United States government is involved in now is to militarize Asia and build more bases in Asia, in Jeju in South Korea, and Henoko in Okinawa. And the people, for example, in Okinawa are against more military bases. I've been to Okinawa, and you have these jets and helicopters screaming overhead all the time, next to schools. And sometimes these helicopters and jets crash next to schools and kill people, kill the children, kill the students. And people protest, but the U.S. government refused to stop it, and the Japanese government refused to stop it. So we believe that there has to be an end to militarization. We have to shut down the bases in Okinawa and around the world. And also that we should learn that the militarization during the war, after the war, the United States tested nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands, in Bikini Islands. And what they did was they contaminated these islands. And the islands now have native people who are sick and their families are sick and they need radiation treatment because they've been radiated, and the government refuses to take care of them. And actually this video done by John Pilger, a journalist, goes to Bikini Islands and interviews the residents and talks about what's going on. He also goes to Okinawa and talks about the effect of war in Okinawa, and he goes to South Korea and interviews the women and others who are opposing military base in Okinawa, because this is an international issue. It's not just an American issue. And I want to add that we in San Francisco have another problem, and that's called Hunters Point Shipyard. I don't know if you know about Hunters Point and Treasure Island Shipyard, but this shipyard was used as a radioactive laboratory at the end of the war. And they tested animals on radiation. They also tested workers there. And they brought back these ships from Bikini Islands who'd been contaminated. They brought back them to Hunters Point, and then they sandblasted them without telling the workers that they were contaminated from nuclear bombs. And the reason is they said they wanted to see that if these ships could be decommissioned and used again, or decontaminated and used again. In other words, they were testing the people on nuclear radiation to see if they could go to war and survive it with these ships. So this is the insanity. The terrible thing is that not only did the workers get cancer as well, their families and other people in Hunters Point have been contaminated for decades with radioactive material and asbestos. And this has been covered up for decades, and actually the United States government through Nancy Pelosi has spent $1 billion trying to decontaminate the Hunters Point and Treasure Island, and it's still contaminated because you can't really decontaminate this radioactive site. And the demand now is that the company Tetra Tech and Test America be prosecuted, and the politicians who are aware that this was happening be prosecuted, because these whistleblowers who came forward, like the whistleblowers in Fukushima, said that there were great dangers, and they were ignored, they were harassed, they were bullied, and they were fired. This is what happened in Fukushima. The same thing has happened in San Francisco. So this Thursday, At 2 o'clock, we're going to be having a press conference at Treasure Island in front of a charter school. They built a charter school in Treasure Island. So these children who are in the Treasure Island charter school have been contaminated as well, because Treasure Island had testing of radioactive training for Navy people. In fact, they built a ship on Treasure Island called Pandemonium. That was the name of the ship. And the ship was to train people on how to deal with a nuclear disaster. They called it Pandemonium. That's exactly what it is. The crazy thing and the insane thing about it is that Pelosi and Feinstein and Gavin Newsom and London Breed the Mayor want to build condos on Treasure Island and Hunters Point. They want to build these homes on contaminated material, and it has gotten so bad that the banks say they're not going to loan any money on the homes, and people can't sell their homes. So, I mean, you talk about the insanity of a system and the greed that is really behind this. They thought, what a great view. We can build these wonderful condos in Treasure Island with a great view of San Francisco, even if the ground is polluted with radioactive material. So this shows a systemic problem of capitalism, really, that they don't care about people. They don't care about the people that have been sickened, the residents of Treasure Island, the residents of Hunter Point. They want to make money, and in doing that, they spent our money, the tax dollars, to supposedly clean it up, and they're now building these, they're trying to continue to build these condos on Treasure Island. So we're going to have a press conference at 2 o'clock, and on the 17th, we're going to have a movie called The Coming War on China. And it's going to be at the Berkeley Library, and we're going to have speakers, Grace Shimizu, who's with the Comfort Women Coalition, and the Peruvian Americans who are fighting for justice because they were kidnapped from Peru to be brought to the United States during the Second World War to be used as prisoners of war in an exchange. Imagine that. Peruvian Japanese are kidnapped in Peru and brought to the United States to be used as prisoners of war with Japan in the war. I mean, what a war crime that is, actually. So, and Miho Kim, who's a Korean American, is going to talk about the repression of Korean Japanese. So we're going to have this movie at the library. It's going to be at the main library in Berkeley at 2090 Kittredge Street in Berkeley on Sunday, September 17th at 1:30 p.m. We'll have a discussion. September 17th. Sunday, September 17th at 1:30 p.m. So we have to educate ourselves. Our voices are not going to go away. We are going to continue to struggle to get these issues out. And I know that the Japanese government is very unhappy about us because at last month's event, they actually had some Japanese security people who tried to interrogate a Japanese student in San Francisco State, an exchange student, about what she was doing here because she was covering our rally. So we're going to be here, we're going to continue to fight, and we're going to say, no nukes now, never again. No nukes now, never again. No nukes now, never again. Roger, look at your right. You want to ride? You'll take the bus, okay. Okay, would you like to speak? You want to speak? No? Are there any other speakers who would like to speak over here?
I'll just say a couple words.
Sure.
Konnichiwa. My name is Dwight. I actually, 60 years ago, I grew up in, well, I didn't grow up. I lived in Sendai. So Sendai was one of the towns that was decimated by Fukushima, which is the perfect confluence of militarism, climate issues, corporatism. Basically, it's just a disaster all the way around. And Abe, I mean, I'm glad I heard some letters at the end that were more, were kind of hammered him, because the early letters were kind of being really nice to him. He's basically a lapdog for TEPCO, and anybody who would even think about nominating Trump for Nobel Peace Prize is a joke. So, anyway, no more nukes. No more nukes.
Last point, I also want to talk about a political prisoner in Japan, Fumiaki Hoshino, who was arrested in a protest against the U.S.-Japanese military agreement, because this agreement allowed for the stationing of equipment, military, in Okinawa. And he was framed up, the videos disappeared, and he's been in jail for 42 years in Japan. And there's an international campaign to release him, but the fact of the matter is, those people who are protesting against militarization, those people who are protesting against nuclear warfare have been repressed in Japan. Japan has passed a secrecy law, it's passed a conspiracy law, and we know that Shimoji, a professor who was an activist, an anti-nuclear activist in Osaka. He was passing out flyers against the dispersal of radioactive material in Osaka, because the Japanese government's solution to all this radioactive material is spread it out throughout Japan. Imagine that. Imagine a solution that they're going to solve the radioactive material by spreading it out throughout Japan on islands and different places. He opposed that, and he was arrested. He and other people were put in prison or jail for a couple of weeks. So this repression has to be opposed, and we have to demand the freedom of Fumiaki Hoshino and an end to the repression. So this is part and parcel. We're going to continue this fight, and solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Japan, solidarity with the families who do not want to go back to Fukushima, and we demand no more restarting the nuclear plants. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters.
Thank you for coming. And let's not forget, more than 200 children, got the thyroid cancer. And then the government is still saying that not because Fukushima melted down. And then please remember, more than 42,000 people are still not able to go back their home. Fukushima, this disaster is not over yet. It's ongoing. We have to really tell people, and we have to stand front of the government that change your policy. The commission of nuclear power plant. Forget about the nuclear weapons. Forget about wagging the tails to the U.S. government. Thank you so much, and we'd like to see you again. You want to talk?
Hello, my name is Ingrid, and with the American Indian movement here in San Francisco. And we shut down all nuclear plants. It was a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming today for the 8th anniversary of March 11th nuclear disaster. And we will be here again for the next month, 11th, April 11th, here 3 p.m. Hope many people attend, and then voice out. Our voice.
Speak out.
Speak out. Thank you very much. Shut down all the nukes. Shut down all nukes. Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Fukushima never again.
Fukushima never again.
Fukushima never again.
Fukushima never again.
Shut down all the nukes.
Shut down all the nukes.
Thank you.